Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. In this week's guitar lesson, we're going to break down a soulful lead that's played between the major and the minor pentatonic scale. And so it's always important for you as a guitar player, as a lead guitar player and an improviser, to know how to go back and forth between those two scales. And it's really not that difficult to do. So we're going to break that down in this lesson. I'm going to show you where all these notes come from so that you can start to improvise in this style. Now this song is in the key of F sharp. And there's no open strings in it, which means you can easily transpose everything you're about to learn to any key. In fact, I've got two versions of the MP3 jam track. There's the version which is in F sharp, but there's also a version in G sharp. And so my goal for you at the end of this lesson, your big quiz, I guess, is to be able to take that G sharp jam track and take everything you're going to learn in F sharp and just transpose it. And theoretically, you should be able to do that when you know where all these notes come from and how they tie back to chord shapes and all of that. So we'll explain that as we go through the lesson. I've got the lesson split into two parts. In this video, we'll take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half, as well as download those two jam tracks that I mentioned and the tablature for this lesson, you're going to want to go to ActiveMelody.com, go to the lessons page, and do a search for EP216. So let's go ahead and break down part one. Alright, so this song is in F sharp, and the way that I played the rhythm over this sounds like this. I'm just hanging out on that F sharp chord. Sometimes I'll throw in that B chord, but most of what we're doing, the gist of it, is happening over the F sharp chord. Now the only reason I throw in that B chord is just to enhance the rhythm. It makes it sound a little more interesting, and that's a great takeaway for you. If you're playing rhythm and you want to spice things up a little bit, just throw in the 4 chord of whatever chord you're playing and then switch back to that chord, and that's a great little technique. Okay, so I'm only mentioning that because all of what we're going to be concentrating on from a lead perspective is playing over the F sharp chord. That way we don't have a lot of chord changes. We're not trying to play chord changes. We're just thinking of the F sharp. So some of what we're going to be doing is major, which will have a more happy, positive sound. Some will be minor, which will be more of a bluesy sound. But let's break it down. So the first thing we're going to learn is this little triangle. And this will be a huge takeaway for some of you. Even if you learn nothing else, you'll have this little B.B. King sounding triangle that you can use when you're improvising. So let's look at where the notes are, and then I'll show you how to get there from the chords. But the first thing is the 9th fret 2nd string, then the 7th fret 2nd string, and then your middle finger goes down on the 8th fret 3rd string. So you can see it's making a little triangle there. So those are 3 notes. Now there's one other note, and that would be if you're on the 9th fret 3rd string, you can do a full bend there. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can create entire solos with this little area. There's so much fun to do, and it's just in that one little shape. You're not dealing with a whole huge scale, you're just looking at one little box. So B.B. King would play in this area quite a bit. So notice it sounds happy. So that's because it's major. So this would be the major pentatonic scale pattern 4 for those of you that are tying it back to those patterns. And I go through all 5 patterns of the minor pentatonic scale in the blues lead course at Active Melody. So check that out if you haven't. But the major pentatonic scale is exactly the same scale. It's just everything is shifted this way 3 frets from the minor pentatonic scale. So you can always remember that as a reference. For any of the 5 patterns, you just shift everything down. But let me show you an easier way to think about getting to this triangle so you can use it in other things. So if that's our F sharp chord, look at where these 2 fingers are, and then we're going to go up 1, 2, 3 frets, and then we're going to play on the 2nd string. So that's part of that triangle. That's one of the notes in it. That's one way to think of it. Another way to think of it would be to make your F sharp chord using the A chord shape. So instead of using this E chord shape, we're going to use the A chord shape. And then look at where your index finger is. And that's the other edge of the triangle. So think of it that way. If that helps you anyway. That's kind of how I think of it. No matter what chord I'm playing or whatever key the song is in, if it's in G, I know that I can noodle my way up to this little triangle, the B.B. King triangle. But that's how I think of it. So now we got our boundaries straight. Let's get into the specific notes. So the first thing that I played was this. And And that's the 7th fret 2nd string, and I held it out for 4 beats. So if we're counting it in, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go into the next measure, and then I played. So let's look at that. So there's that 7th fret 2nd string. Now we're going to do a full bend and release on the 9th fret 2nd string. There's your bend and release. Back to the back to the 7th fret. Middle finger goes down on the 8th fret 3rd string. Then we go down to the 6th fret 3rd string with our index finger. So now we come back to the 8th fret 3rd string and do a half bend. Not a full bend. That's going to sound wrong. If you do a half bend, you get kind of a bluesy thing. So you're hitting this note. A half bend is 1 fret above where you start the bend. So from the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there was a little hammer on there back to the 8th fret 3rd string to conclude that. Then I came up here and played, and this has a Steve Cropper type feel to me. He would do a lot of these double stops. And what I'm doing, and you can use this now going forward once you can relate this back to the chord, but these notes, it's the 1st and 3rd string, actually it starts on the 3rd string, and they're both on the 6th fret, so it's 3, 1, 3, 1. Those are the string numbers, and I'm picking on the 3rd string, plucking with my ring finger on the 1st string with my right hand. You don't have to do that. That's called hybrid picking, where you're using both. You could just use your pick. You could do it either way. But this is important because you have to look at where it is in relation to the chord. So that's your F sharp chord, F sharp major chord. Look at where these 2 fingers are, skip a fret and come up, and then you've got this. Now what you've got when you've got this, you've also got the 2 notes from the F sharp chord if you're playing the D chord shape. So if we just took our D chord and slid it up here, you're playing that. So you're just taking those 2 notes out of it. However you want to think about it. That's what we're doing. Then you can walk them down and use that for turnarounds and all kinds of things. So just always relate it back to the chord shapes so that you can start to improvise with this stuff. Okay. Now after that I went. Let's get that. So that's the 6th fret 1st string, and I hit it 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and then did a half bend. It's just a half bend. We're just coming up 1 fret. Release. Down to the 4th fret on the 1st string. Down to the 2nd fret on the 1st string. All that was on the 1st string. Actually, there was a pull off there. See how I flicked that with my finger? I didn't actually pick that. You could pick that if that's easier for you, but I find it easier to do a pull-off. That's a hammer on, and then we slide back up to that 6th fret 1st string. Pretty cool. It almost has kind of a slide feel to me when you play it that way. And then I did a slide right back down to the 4th fret 1st string, and then down to the 2nd fret. I'm trying to sound, I guess in my mind, I didn't think about this, this happened subconsciously, but I had like Derek Trucks in my head when I was thinking of this. His awesome, super locked in on the note slide technique. Now, that's nothing like what he could do, but that's kind of the gist of what I was going for. All right, from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, pretty cool so far. And then we got... Now that sounds really complicated. But it's super easy because we're just tracing the notes out of that chord. Let's start with that first bend there. And what I'm playing on the 4th fret 2nd string, and I'm doing a half bend. Release. And a pull off. Now I've got my index finger down on the 2nd fret 2nd string so that when I do the pull off, I'm hitting that note. Then my ring finger goes down to the 4th fret 3rd string, and then I come back and I pick the 2nd fret 2nd string. So we have. Now where are we at? Some of you might be lost at this point. This is where we're going back from the minor pentatonic scale. We're kind of going back and forth between minor and major. So see how happy that sounds? That's all major pentatonic stuff. But then when I go, I'm hitting this note, which is in the minor pentatonic scale. That's why it sounds bluesy. So you can see that just dancing around into the minor, it just pushes the feel into more of a bluesy. Now after that, I went. This is a great little set of notes here to walk away from, or walk away with and use. And all I'm doing, if you made the major bar chord and played string 3, 4, and 5, that's all I'm doing. The only difference is I'm hammering on to the 3rd string from the 2nd fret to the 3rd fret, like this. Then my ring finger is down on the 4th fret 4th string. Middle finger goes down on the 4th fret 5th string. But that's what I'm doing in my mind. I'm just picturing the notes out of that chord and I'm tracing them. Anytime you can work notes directly from a chord, you get those chord tones which give you a much more melodic sounding lead. Okay, let's take it from. And then I went, and that's kind of how I wrapped up that phrase. So my middle finger was down on the 4th fret 5th string. I did a slide up to the 6th fret, so we're just going up 2 frets. Index finger goes down to the 4th fret 4th string. And then I do a hammer on between the 4th fret and the 6th fret on the 4th string. And then that final note is the 4th fret 4th string. Now what are these notes? What happened there? Well, this is another cool little box, another great takeaway for you on this. Look at where your major bar chord is. I use this all the time. It's super easy to find because you just look at where these 2 fingers are, and if you go down to the 6th fret, the 6th string in that same fret where those fingers were, look at that. You have a little box that goes between this fret and this fret on the 6th string, 5th string, and 4th string. You've got this little box. Now I could keep going up with it, but I'm just showing you this little part of it because you can use that all the time when you're wanting to throw in a little major sound. Look at that. Real easy to do, real easy to find because it's right there near your fingers. I can look down at my neck and see it. Okay, that's a lot of information. Let's back up now from the beginning and play up to there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then I came up and went. Now let's get into that. Now all I'm doing is, when I come up to these 2 notes, I'm right back to that pattern 4 of the major pentatonic scale, that little triangle. So I just slid right back into that triangle. Middle finger comes up to the 8th fret 3rd string. Index finger goes down on the 7th fret 2nd string. And then I came up to this little, think of this as an extension on the triangle, because we're going to go to this in a few places. So you've got those 2 notes. And then where your ring finger is here on the 9th fret 3rd string, think of it as the corner of the triangle. You can slide that up 2 more frets. This would be to the 11th fret 2nd string. Then my index finger goes down on the 9th fret 1st string. Isn't that nice? Very melodic sounding. And it's just an extension of that triangle. That's how I see it. Okay, then I went. This is really easy to do. and it sounds very complicated. It's got a country feel to it. Some of this comes from from Jimi Hendrix, his solo in Wind Cries Mary. A lot of that's where I'm getting these ideas. So check that out after you learn this. But this is really cool because it's really easy. Let's see, we're going to slide into it and play it twice. Then I'm going to slide everything down, so I'm playing the 9th fret 2nd string with my ring finger. Then my index finger goes down to the 7th fret 2nd string. And then watch this. All I'm doing is I'm borrowing the first 2 strings there on the 7th fret and doing a hammer-on to the 9th fret 2nd string. But I'm playing both strings. That's what gives it that country sound. You get that kind of harmonized 3rd thing going. And then I slid all the way down here to the 2nd fret and did the same thing. So that's borrowing the first 2 strings on the 2nd fret, doing a hammer-on to the 4th fret 2nd string. So it's like that. All right, let's take it from here. 3, 4. And then I went to conclude that lick. Now that's almost a cop-out because it's just so easy. All I'm doing is playing the 3rd string and the 1st string out of that F sharp major chord. But I did a hammer on there from the 2nd fret 3rd string to the 3rd fret on the 3rd string, and then plucked that 1 string. Okay. Okay, then I came into kind of well, actually, let's back up and play everything up to that point. That's a lot of information. Here we go, from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, then I came up here and went. Now that's a lot of licks played out of that triangle that we just learned. And it's got kind of an Allman Brothers feel to me. Especially that part. So what I'm doing there is I've got my ring finger on the 9th fret 2nd string. And I'm doing a bend. It's a full bend and release. And then my index finger stays locked down on the 7th fret 2nd string. So that's a great lick too. Even if you just walk away with that lick, you could use that all the time. It sounds really good over a blues or over something major. So just remember where that is. So I did 2 of those. Then I came up and did the same kind of thing, but on the 1st string. It's a full bend on the 9th fret. So after the bend, the release, the 7th fret 1st string, then I come down to the 9th fret 2nd string and we do a pre-bend. And that's where you go ahead and bend before you play it. And then, so that's a bend on the 9th fret 2nd string, release it, and then hit the 7th fret 2nd string. So backing up we have. Now I'm going to play. That's just 9, 7 on the 2nd string, 8 on the 3rd string, and then 7 on the 2nd string. So, and then I did one final, that's a bend, release, and a pull off so that I can hit that 7th fret 2nd string. Now, I guess I'm doing this, adding so much from this area just to demonstrate what all you can do from a lead perspective. So you have even though it's just a few notes, it's sort of a natural thing it's like a human nature to want to do something more. You got to keep moving, you got to be doing something fast, all of us do that as guitar player, probably for any instrument. But some of the best sounding stuff is when you just hang out in one area. So just remember that. So you don't feel compelled to have to jump all around the neck. That's just making it more difficult for you and sometimes for the listener. So just see what you can do in one little area, master that area, and then kind of move on. Okay. And then to conclude that, I went, which is really cool. That's going back into this little extension that I just showed you off of the triangle. So we're going to go from the 9th fret to the 10th fret. I'm sorry, from the 9th fret to the 11th fret on the 2nd string. Then we're going to go to the 9th fret on the 1st string, 11th fret 1st string. So, and then that's a quick slide. I use my middle finger for that. From the 11th fret to the 9th fret, and then down to the 7th fret. That's a great little... It sounds like somebody's singing to me, especially with those slides in there. If you played it without the slides, it just sounds way too robotic. You gotta slide into it. Okay, that's, I think, where we're gonna wrap up this part 1 video. It's a lot that was covered. Let me back up and I'll do one more time through as a slow reference, and then I'll see you in part 2 to conclude this. And make sure, if you're not a premium member, check it out. It's like the best deal going, and you have access to the entire archive, like 8 years worth of lessons. I put out new lessons every Tuesday and every Tuesday and every Friday. So here we go with all the lesson materials as well. 1, 2, 3, 4.